Hi, I'm Laura Flanders, and this is City Works, a production of the City University of New York School of Labor and Urban Studies and CUNY TV. Every month, City Works explores the lives of working people on the job, at home, in our communities, in order to see what ways New York can achieve greater social and economic equality. One of the most exciting developments in the realm of social and economic organizing recently has been the development of worker co-ops. And we have three extraordinary guests to share their work and vision about how to rethink and restructure power relationships in the workforce to better serve the interests of working people with me here today. How, for example, can union membership coupled with worker ownership strengthen worker power and build a more just society? I am very happy to welcome Rebecca Lurie, a professor here at CUNY and founder of the university's Community and Worker Ownership Project. Rebecca Lurie has dedicated some of her academic focus to the intersection of co-ops and unions especially, and she has an exceptional range of experience on the topic. How did lobstermen, for example, a title that includes lobster women, partner with machinists to create both an affiliate union local and a marketing co-op? Professor Lurie will share her answer and others, and how the successes demonstrate union membership with worker ownership can make an enormous difference when it comes to worker power. Also joining us, LaRay Brown, who since July 2017 has served as CEO of One Brooklyn Health System, a principal provider of healthcare services in central and northeast Brooklyn. It has 12 ambulatory care centers, 3 hospitals, 2 nursing homes, an assisted living and independent living facility, a transitional housing program, an urgent care center, and a retail pharmacy, and an extraordinary story. If that were not enough, Ms. Brown is also CEO and president of Interfaith Medical Center. One Brooklyn Health is a founding anchor institution of BCC, Brooklyn Communities Collaborative, about which we're going to hear more. We're also joined by one of New York's outstanding legislators with a keen eye to worker power and economic justice, New York City Councilmember Sandy Nurse, who has brought support from within city government to this innovation of worker and worker union co-ops. Councilmember Nurse represents District 37, including the Cypress Hills, Bushwick, City Line, Ocean Hill, Brownsville, and East New York sections of Brooklyn. Rebecca Lurie, LaRay Brown, Councilmember Sandy Nurse, welcome all of you to this program. The sheer ambition of your work is extraordinary, and the importance of this moment can't be overstated, I don't think. I don't know whether it's just me, but coming to you, Professor Lurie, I know that you've been in this business a long time looking at this story. It seems to me the whole subject of worker co-ops has shifted from margins at the best to fairly widespread enthusiasm today. Is that just me, or are you seeing it too?
Well, let's say I'm seeing it too. Not just you, but there is a sector of society that we pay attention to, and so we see it in our sector. Part of what we're seeing, though, writ large, is so many people who work have to find their own way to make work. Something like 40% of Americans now are considered self-employed, which is not really true. You're working for somebody somewhere. Someone is moving that money. So as some people say, so a lot of people search out entrepreneurialism. That means you just start your own thing out of a desire. But co-ops let you do that collectively and actually bring in the power of together to make that work.
And has the pandemic made a difference, turning to you, LaRay, in the health sector? Do you think this experience that we've all been through of having massive change in our work lives contributed to a lot more questioning about how we organize work?
Well, I think the pandemic has really raised the importance of the issues of economic health in certain communities, particularly those communities that the health system that I work for. And it also has raised the import of, to your point and that of Professor Lurie, of how can people make work themselves? And importantly, make work themselves with others, right? And so I do believe that the more that we can create forums for folks to get to know what one another are doing so that they can join forces in being successful in their independent entrepreneurial efforts. And so I do believe that the pandemic has helped to hone that. But I would say that we've been working together even before the pandemic on some of these concepts, particularly in Brooklyn, and particularly with the labor partners that One Brooklyn has.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in just a second, but let me bring in the council member for a second. Councilmember Nurse, what are you seeing? And when your constituents say, what's a co-op, what do you say?
Well, I think that we do have a lot of constituents interested in worker-owned co-ops, and we do have actual worker-owned co-ops that have come out of a lot of grassroots organizing and empowerment, economic empowerment work from many organizations for a long time. A lot particularly in immigrant communities where folks have not been able to access employment or really struggled. They have looked at the physical labor they're doing, whether they're cleaning offices, cleaning homes, and decided that they wanted to collaborate and work together to grow their business. And it's been a useful tool for them to be able to achieve success in that area. And I think that at the council, we've seen an increase in funding of members who want to fund initiatives, who want to fund organizations that can help educate New Yorkers about what this economic model is and how it is a tool for empowerment. And so I think the other guests are correct in that this is part of the conversation here in New York City. We have, even within our small business service, we have staff dedicated to supporting worker-owned businesses. That is something the city is actually supporting directly. We know that the city has also provided trainings to many places. And so this is now a central feature of our work. And I think we're going to start seeing, around procurement and contracting with our public dollars, we're going to start to see more of that focused on worker-owned co-ops.
I mean, this is I don't want to say sea change because I'm not feeling the tidal shift just yet, but 10 years ago, there wasn't any space for worker co-ops in the Small Business Administration. There was no consciousness or presence in the budget. It's still small, it's growing, but we have legislators like Councilmember Nurse including worker-owned co-ops and support for co-ops as part of her mandate, as part of her platform. To me, this is all very exciting, but I don't want to get away from defining what a co-op really is. So Rebecca, tell us a little bit about what is different between a worker-owned co-op and what you might call a regular business in private capital world.
Well, I could go on for too long. So what I will say is that it has to do with ownership and control. And really harken back to the District 37, where Ocean Hill-Brownsville has history of what it means to have community control. Mm-hmm. That whole history of saying, how do we control the means of whatever it is that is ours really matters. So whether back in the day in the 1960s, that story was about controlling the schools that the parents had their kids in, we might say now our local economy, we might say now any business we go to work for. It overlaps in a Venn diagram really hard with what unionization can do. But it's not only that, because there are really small micro businesses where a few people coming together and practicing together what does it take to make this work has to do with ownership, control, and sometimes I say there are two guide rails, transparency and democracy. So how transparent are we with information to make the thing run? If it's widgets, what goes into those widgets? And what does that all take so people can understand it? So you're enlivening people's ability to understand what it is, what it takes, and then the democracy of really making sure that everybody's included, which undoes a lot of racism and historical oppression to say everybody has a voice here.
So how is the experience different for a worker owner in a worker co-op than a regular worker?
We're paying attention to everything about that company. They're not only paying attention to the job that they have been hired for, but they're paying attention to the returns and how their job may impact those returns. And so that really the flow for that company matters. I've been to jobs, I've worked as a carpenter, Sandy knows this, where we used to say, we only get paid from the neck down, which means you're not thinking about it a whole lot, just do the thing. No, we get paid, we're part of this company. So if there's a loss because something is not going well, we can track that, understand that, and make it work better.
Councilmember Nurse, give some examples of co-ops that you've either been part of or you're excited about or that you see out there, and then we'll come back a little bit more, I think, to this question of what happened in Brooklyn around healthcare.
Yeah, so One, I bank with the Brooklyn Cooperative Federal Credit Union. I go to an annual meeting where I get to hear more about what's going on, and I can offer my input. But also, when I was starting out as an assistant, a carpenter, the first company I worked for was a passive house company, and it was actually when I joined and started working there, it began this process of selling the company to its workers. And this is a really interesting feature of worker-owned co-op, because when business owners decide, I don't want to do this anymore, or I'm aging out of this business and I don't my children don't want this business, or there's not an immediate successor, two things happen. Usually the business either closes or it goes for sale and somebody else buys it and has their own vision. In this process, the company decided to sell the business to the owner, to the workers, and we would then own the company. And what that meant is that in successful examples, what that could mean is that now we're not out of work. We don't have a new boss that we don't know and maybe don't have the same vision, but we also get to restructure a little bit. Worker-owned businesses can be just like any other business. They can be really small, where you only have a handful of people working, and therefore conversations are happening all the time about direction, and input is more direct. But then you could have very large businesses that have multiple departments and different tiers of owners who have different levels of stake. Not everybody wants to be in the weeds of all parts of running the business, but the difference is that there is a stake, there is equity in how this business is operating, and there's more of an option. If you want it, it's available to you to participate in informing on the direction and helping to make decisions. So I've been a part of, like I said, where I bank is a co-op, but I also have been a part of a process of a business going through a co-op, and it was. There are challenges. This is not there are no silver bullets to anything. There are many challenges in terms of educating workers, training workers. So if I'm a carpenter and all I do is put up walls all day and I'm framing, I may have no idea about how a architect is functioning, or how somebody who's doing the interior design work is happening. So,
and I've heard a lot about a lot of meetings. We're going to talk more about this when we come back. We're going to take a quick break right here and come back with more on worker co-ops and union co-ops when we return.
The CUNY School of Labor and Urban Studies is the 25th and newest school under the CUNY umbrella. Dedicated to public service and social justice, the CUNY School of Labor and Urban Studies offers undergraduate and graduate degrees in the areas of labor studies and urban studies, and certificate programs in labor relations, public administration and public policy, healthcare policy and administration, and community leadership. We pride ourselves on being an institution that brings together activists and academics. Find out more at slu.cuny.edu.
The Brooklyn Packers are a cooperative that are packaging up healthy food for distribution through One Brooklyn's health system. Take a look.
I've been a chef for years, and I have my own catering company and my own restaurant. And I realized that folks that we bring in, the turnover is very high. And it's because they have no stake in the game. They're just like in it for a check. And I realized that we have to change that model. So we decided to form our own worker-owned cooperative.
So as a worker-owned cooperative, we mostly work in distributing food, whether that is through our farm share, Brooklyn Supported Agriculture, or through our community partnerships with a bunch of nonprofits, mutual aid groups. Something that I've come around to is that a lot of the challenges are the advantages. You kind of have to think about the entirety of the business and every kind of minutia of decision making. I've had jobs in the past, obviously, that were not involved in cooperatives or cooperative development in any way. And it seems in those circumstances that just rolls downhill on you. And in this case, you get to, when stuff does come to you, difficulty does come to you, it's a meaningful difficulty. most of the food that's around here is trash. And people talk about not having money to buy groceries, and when they do have the money to buy groceries, the options are abysmal. Like, eating healthily is unfortunately a luxury. We're relatively small, our footprint is small, and we don't have a lot of overhead, including like paying ourselves, so that we can keep prices pretty low.
Everyone should have equal rights to all the food in the world. And that's basically our thing, you know. Whether you like kohlrabi or not, it's here. It's, you know, you have a right to it, and it's yours, you know, for the taking, and it makes us proud to serve our community.
We're back with our guests, Rebecca Lurie, LaRay Brown, and Sandy Nurse. All right, turning to you, Rebecca, just quickly, kick it out of the park, out of people's brains. Why do they need a union if they're worker owners and they already have a say in the business?
Well, I think a union helps with the market of multiple businesses for which belong that might have contracts with that union. So what happens is the union helps set the floor. An individual company, whether it's owned by its workers or not, can or might not have a collective bargaining agreement. Mm-hmm. But a collective bargaining agreement for a sector in a market helps set the standard, set the floor, the terms and conditions. It's a very important market player. Then you have a small company that comes in, 3 people, 10 people, they're small. Why do we need a union? What you love about the union is they've set your competitors all on a common floor. Mm-hmm. And then you can have other things like the benefits that come with union membership. So I want to talk a little bit about something that we're developing with Brooklyn Communities Collaborative and at the School of Labor and Urban Studies. We've had students who have been developing projects. We're calling at this point the stage of this development dolphin schools.
I love it, and remind us why. Unlike
Shark Tank, where everybody comes in and competes, a dolphin school is designed to, like, let's talk this over. So we're pulling people in, and particularly one of them that we're working on, and there are several, is a food guild. So tiny businesses that would never think of like joining a union but would love all the benefits that come with unionization, anchored together in a bigger cohort as a guild, might be able to work with the union. And the UFCW has been in conversation with us just to start to say, how do we think about a different kind of membership? Now, this is all being innovated all over the country right now. So it's not like the example you gave for the lobster men, the women agree to be called lobster men. A union stepped in and said, we can help here, and created a different type of membership, because by regulation in Maine, where this is, you have to be an independent contractor. It's one lobster person per company. Mm. And so that set them up as these independent people, much like a gig economy. How do you actually aggregate that? So we want to look at that in the model of a guild, have the union there to sort of remind everybody of what is the floor, maybe be able to afford some benefits, but then really look at the purchasing power of anchor institutions.
In comes the health institutions.
Right, and there is the wonderful synergy between what Rebecca's talking about and what we can do. One Brooklyn, with all of our hospitals, our nursing homes, our health centers, we have incredible opportunity to invest in our neighborhoods, invest in our communities. And as an anchor institution, I'd say that, you know, more than 50% of our staff live in our neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. And most of our staff are unionized. And so that investment of and support for the Guild, for our unions and their engagement in worker co-ops allows us to further invest in the economic health of the communities that we serve.
So One Brooklyn isn't a co-op itself, or it is?
No, so we're not, I would say we're a facilitator and a supporter of. So as an example, in terms of the Food Guild, it could be that as the Guild produces their products and or services, that would be something that we could purchase. We have to feed patients, we have to feed our staff, and so we could look to how do we support that business. Mm-hmm. I have to say that we have committed, One Brooklyn has committed to spend at least 10% of our, whatever we purchase, with local entities, with Brooklyn-based entities, and frankly, even within that, minority women-owned businesses. And that would include the guilds, that would include co-ops. So it's part of providing the financial support, but getting something back for services that we need, for resources that we need.
The think tank, the Democracy Collaborative, talks about community wealth building.
Exactly.
And anchor institutions like EDS and MEDS, educational and medical, are classic anchor institutions. There is a role for government in this kind of virtuous cycle. Sandy, do you want to come in on what role you see for government in New York to foster and grow this sector?
Absolutely. I think there's a few concrete ways. One, I think we can commit more of our city purchasing dollars towards supporting these types of business, worker-owned co-ops. We're already doing it with MWBEs. We have certain, dollars that are supposed to be spent that way, but we could be also committing that to worker-owned co-ops.
Right.
We could be looking at our industrial business zones and looking at the fact that our industry and manufacturing in New York City is going away, and the few businesses that we do have, these owners are aging out and there are not immediate successors. So we could be facilitating that. We could be doing succession planning. We could be looking at incubating and recruiting and training up a whole swath of different types of industries by sector and how they can be supported in these zones. We could be implementing things like commercial rent stabilization so that these businesses have a chance to get off the ground. We could be resourcing more of our agencies that support the small business community, our business industrial districts. We could be doing a lot more for education awareness, incubation, recruitment, retention.
And why? Really, why, as a council member, is this an important thing for you to do? I mean, I'm remembering, Mayor Michael Bloomberg, who said if every billionaire wanted to come to New York, he'd be for it, because every billionaire brings billions, and billions supposedly trickle down. Why do you think worker co-ops and union co-ops are a good investment?
Because it puts people first and it gives people more of a say, and it's fundamentally geared towards protecting our rights. The fact is, our economy is changing. The pandemic, there are things that are forcing changes in terms of where business is happening. People are doing more stuff in the outer boroughs than they are in Manhattan. There is automation happening, and we also are very clear that we are losing a lot of the sectors that the American economy grew on, manufacturing, industry. And so we need to focus on how do we support our workers and our young people who are coming up and keep those dollars that flowing in our communities, because they just go right out. We have to circulate them across. That's why the example of One Brooklyn is so important, that solidarity economy of looking at, like, we want to support our folks in our community, so we're going to support the businesses that are homegrown here and that are practicing these democratic principles in their workplaces. So it's really important for us to get in front of this curve and really try to focus on lifting up our workers, lifting up our communities, and keeping the resources, human, financial, ecological, in our community, because we are losing them right now.
I remember going to Mondragon in the Basque region of Spain, where the co-ops there are a leading driver in the economy, not just that part of Spain, but all of Spain. And the bankers there talked about the role of finance, and they said, in a capitalist economy, the role of the finance is to create profit for investors. In a cooperative economy, the role of the financial institutions is to serve the community. The economy is focusing on serving the community.
That's right.
I think there's also a public health aspect.
Well, absolutely.
Can you talk about that and what difference these relationships, because undergirding all of these conversations are relationships that don't exist in typical contracts.
It's relationships, but I cannot separate health from wealth. I can't separate that. So when individuals and communities do not have economic well-being, there's greater healthcare disparities. There's greater premature death. There's greater stress that people live under, which creates illness. And when people are, again, have no hope in terms of any kind of economic stability and ownership, then they also have less access to affordable and safe housing, less access and less voice in terms of better and great education, less access to upward mobility. All of those things, to me, are interrelated and are very much related to our role as an anchor institution. It's not about providing sick care. It's about investing in our communities so there's less sick care, but we're providing health and preventive health and support, but we're part of the ecosystem of the communities that we sit in, and we're a contributor to the health and wealth of those communities.
Thank you, everybody. What a great conversation. We could obviously keep going. I want to thank you, Councilmember Sandy Nurse. So good to have you. Rebecca Lurie, keep up the great work. LaRay Brown, thank you all for joining us today on CityWorks. For questions or comments about today's program, write to us at cityworks.slu.cuny.edu. For CityWorks, I'm Laura Flanders. Thanks for watching.